Okay, so recently I installed a couple of these 18650 lithium ions in my Taranis, and I got tons of questions on why I would do that. So I'm going to tell you why. First off, right, I installed them just here in the back of the radio, and I'll show you how I did that and wired everything up later. This makes the radio far more balanced in my hands. I mean, it feels really nice in my hands now, instead of having that battery in the bottom and that swinging weight. So now that the only thing that's in my battery door here is the balance lead that goes to the 18650s for charging, because my home charger has a balance only lead. And I added this little JST plug that goes to an XT60 in case I have a little extension on here. I guess I could have just put it on an XT60, but just in case I want a field charge, I have that option. As we all know, it came, you know, the Taranis came with the NiCad batteries, and they were super heavy and took forever to charge and didn't hold a charge that long. So a lot of us, the first things we did was hack in a lithium polymer battery. Now, why would I want to use these over the lithium polymer battery? Well, I'll tell you why. Lithium polymer batteries are printed out in a ribbon, right? This is how we make this is how they can make them in any shapes or forms. They wrap this ribbon around the diodes, in between diodes, then the diode ribbon goes in between them, so they can make it in like any size, shape, form, whatever they want for cell phones, computers, blah 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 blah. And it's a little lighter and less volatile than lithium ion. Now ion can be packed into a far denser core, so it can store far more energy with the diodes on the outside. And this is why we don't really use this for mini quads, is because these cores make it, you know, far too heavy, and you know, we can't really strap 4 of these on top of our mini quad. It's way heavier than the lithium polymer, and this can't really be made into too many different shapes, as it's a hard core. Okay, so that being said, right, with a lithium polymer, if we treat it exactly perfect, they say it can go anywhere from 200 to 500 charges. But now the actual best operating voltage for a lithium polymer is 3.97, right? But we charge them up to 4.2, because there's no way, let's just say 4 here. There's no way we can charge them up to 4 and only fly for 30 seconds. And the amp draw and the power that we demand to fly a mini quad would just sag this right out and puff the battery in a heartbeat, right? So we charge them to 420, which this is actually very hard on a LiPo. To charge them to 420 and then quickly discharge them down to, you know, 3.7 like most of us do, and then charge them back up, blah blah blah. This is like the hard. This is the furthest out of this range that the battery can safely go on either end, but it's also the hardest on the battery. So that's why we only end up with a couple hundred cycles out of a LiPo. Now, that being said, when I use the lithium ions, right, my Taranis doesn't require huge amounts of amps and voltage spikes and everything to operate. It's on a smooth range all the way through. I don't do punch outs with the Taranis and flips and rolls. So I can charge my ions to 8, which is in this safety range, right? Now, if I do charge these to 4.2 and discharge them, blah, 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 of course it's going to cut down the lifespan of those. I can charge these up to 8 and keep them in the optimal range. And the other thing about a lithium ion is it can safely discharge to 2.5. But I'm going to set my taranis to discharge at 3, right? So in this range, keeping it safely in this range and not spiking it up and down like so, the estimated cycles that you can get out of a lithium ion is anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 cycles. 2,000 being if I charge it up to 420 and discharge it to 2.5 each time. That's the worst ends of the scenario for the battery. So right there, that alone, excuse me, would be a reason to put the ions in my taranis, right? The other reason that I decided to do this is when we fully charge the lithium polymer to 4.2, then we have 2 of them, of course. So we're actually in the radio. Excuse me for a second here while I get this back in view. So in the radio, we're going to have 8.4, and usually it ends up to be about 8.3, let's just be honest. And then our safe discharge range will be 7.4, 7.3. So that gives us a full 1 volt range from top to bottom, from fully charged in my taranis at 8.4 to safely discharged at 7.4, which is 3.7 per cell, gives me 1 volt. Meanwhile, the lithium ion, if I charge it to only 8, or let's even say safely, it could still go to 8.2, and I would still probably get about 3,000 cycles out of it, right? And it can safely discharge to 2.5, but I'm going to set up at 6. I'm only going to discharge them to 3. So we can see right there that gives me a full range of 2 volts as opposed to this 1 volt. And that's still very safely within the optimal operating range of a LiPo, right? So that right there, the fact that I can probably, on average, I'll get 3,000 cycles out of this as opposed to 500 out of a lithium polymer, and the fact that I have double the range in my radio is another of the reasons why I decided to do this. Okay, so that's the why on why I did that, and a little bit of basics on these batteries. Now, I originally put these 2200s in there, but just to test it out, because I wanted to make sure all this worked and everything was wired up and everything worked fine before I made any videos and people went out there and tried to stick them in their radio and they didn't work, and now I'm an idiot and everybody burnt their taranis up and killed their puppies. But recently I got these ultrafires, which are 6800 mAh, and I'm going to be installing these in my taranis. And when I install these in there, I'll show you guys how I wired them up and how I did everything and how I made them fit in there nice and perfect. Now, I will say ultrafire is a pretty good brand name. 6800 is a little bit high, but I'm kind of trusting that ultrafire is pretty close on that. I'm going to guess it's more around 6,000. Usually these lithium ions, the most they can pack in them when they really press that core in there really dense is about 5,000 mAh. But this will give me 5,000 mAh in my taranis, as opposed to, how big would a 5,000 mAh LiPo be? That's just not going to happen. The other thing I'll tell you, right, is when we hook these batteries in series, which is what we're going to do in the taranis to make our 8 volts, obviously. Well, 3.7 and 3.7 gives us 7.4, and when fully charged, they're 8.4 because they're 4.2 and 4.2. Blah, blah, blah. We all know that. This does not double your milliamps. This just doubles the voltage output, because these are still outputting at the same rate. Okay, so we don't go from 5,000 milliamps per pack to 10,000 milliamps by hooking them in series. We would have to take 2 of them, hook them in parallel to another 2 in parallel, and then hook those in series in order to get 10,000 milliamps, or in my case, with the 6800s, I don't know, do the math. Anyway, so don't think that you're going to get double the milliamps by that. It's still going to be 6800 milliamps because they're drawing, in series, it's drawing from both these batteries at the same time. It just doubles the voltage, which doubles the output, which still leaves you at 6800 milliamps. So anyway, that's why I decided to put the lithium ions in here. And later on, I'll show you how. And like I said, this feels really nice in my hands now without that weight on the bottom. And so far, I would say I've ran 30 packs easily through this radio. And if you can see right there, try to get it to focus in there, I am still at 8 volts after running 30 packs, flying 30 packs through here. So, yeah, and that's just with these 2200s. So I can't imagine what these guys are going to do when I put them in there. But I want to fly and test them a little more and make sure everything's hunky-dory before I show you guys how I installed them and all that stuff, because I don't want to be giving any false information out there. So anyway, stay tuned. I hope that helped you out. Oh, and I also made them for my fat sharks with a lead on them, because I like to put this in my pocket. I don't like a battery strapped to my head. And I put a little switch on mine and use the old Taranis thing to charge them up. And this has lasted for days and days so far too. The thing being with these though is that I do have to charge these to 4.2. So they're going to have a little shorter lifespan, which is okay. They don't have quite as much demand as the mini quads do. Because the fat sharks have a cutoff in them. And as we know, when the battery gets down too low, 7.4 or whatever the cutoff is in it, 7.6, the fat sharks start beeping, beep, 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 to let us know that the battery is low. So anyway, so that's why. And later I'll show you how. Thanks for watching.